Hey, good morning and good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the continuing series of UnleashWD webinars. You know, at UnleashWD, we are committed to bringing critical and advanced thinking to distributors and their channel partners. And today, I'm just jazzed about the topic that we have because we're focused on the topic, as you see on the screen. Amazon supply is entering the ring, and it's now your move. At UnleashWD, we believe down to our core that there is a need to advance the innovation discussion throughout the distribution industry and for our individual businesses. And that's why I'm thrilled that you have joined us. We've got hundreds of individuals who are joining us today from all different, multiple lines of trade. Both manufacturers and distributors are on board right now. We've got Fortune 500 registered for the webinar today, in addition to local single location distributors and everybody in between. It's pretty cool. We've got industry consultants, writers, reporters, publishers, and trade journals signed on also. I think what that just says is how important this conversation about innovation is throughout wholesale distribution. And I think the conversation about innovation has been heightened in the last 2 weeks with Forbes' article that really was the catalyst for bringing us all together today. And we all know the title, we've all read the article, Amazon's Wholesale Slaughter, Jeff Bezos' $8 trillion business-to-business bet. I was tweeting with the author of that article this morning, Claire O'Connor, and she wanted to be on with us, but she couldn't join us. So I said, hey, Claire, would you like to share one word through one tweet, one message through one tweet with the industry? And here's what she shared with me just about 60 minutes ago. Her message to us is Amazon spends billions on R&D. For them, Amazon supply is an experiment. It doesn't have to make money. So Amazon is in the ring. They have a lot of money. They're looking at our business as an experiment. Profits isn't that important to us. Innovation is critical to our conversation. Now, I know that a lot of you have downloaded this morning a tool. Myself and the 3 other panelists, we really want to make this a meaningful conversation for you. So we hope that you've downloaded this tool, Key Insights, where you can jot down your key insights, write down any action items that you want to take in the next 7, 14, and 30 days to move things forward. So let's jump into it. By the way, if you haven't downloaded it, you can get the link in the chat box on your screen. So let's jump into it. You know, through the research that I've done over the last 18 months for our book that's going to be published by the NAW's Institute for Distribution Excellence in August on the spirit of innovation through our distribution, our research shows that 76% of us in distribution believe that we are living in an environment that we could call the age of disruption. And you think about all of the disruptive forces that are impacting and could potentially impact our business. You know, technology breakthroughs, the cloud, big data, mobile, social, the Internet of Things, 3D printing, demographic shifts, right? The rise of millennials and the fact that we're going to have 5 generations in the workforce by 2020, urbanization, the health and the aging of our population, the geopolitical issues that are potentially impacting our business, everything from political unrest to economic uncertainty and more, government influences, the disruptions of increased regulation, the gridlock in Washington, healthcare, military cutbacks is hitting some of our businesses, competitive environment, right, with the market consolidation, commoditization, the ability to attract quality talent, and of course, new and non-traditional competitors. All of these are potential disruptors. And then 2 weeks ago, we're reminded that we're living in the age of disruption with Claire O'Connor's Forbes article talking about the slaughter, Amazon's wholesale slaughter, if you will. So this conversation is critical. And not just because of Amazon supply, because of all these other disruptions that are potentially impacting our business. So I am thrilled that these 3 thought leaders throughout distribution were kind enough to join me on our conversation today. So I'd love to introduce Scott Costa, who's the publisher of TED Magazine. Scott, welcome, man. Thank you for being here.
And thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we're going to have fun. Chris is the CEO of Weidenbach Brown, a lighting distributor. And Chris, man, you and I have talked about Amazon Supply for a lot. I know you've been doing a lot of deep thinking about the disruptions impacting your business and other lines of trade. Really excited that you're here. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks a lot, Dirk.
Yeah, and Guy, most of us on the call know Guy is the wholesale distribution leader at Deloitte. He is the author of the last two, Facing the Forces of Change, that have come out of the NAW, and another great thought leader in our industry, always helping us move forward and innovate. Guy, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks very much, Dirk.
Yeah, let's have fun, guys. And I'm Dirk Beveridge, founder of UnleashWD. So to start us off, Scott, Guy, and Chris, you know, one of the things that I have seen since Amazon, Forbes, featured this story is, I'm on a lot of different emails. I'm reading a lot of trade press and, a lot of reporting that's going on, and I get a lot of emails. And here are just 4 examples of the chatter that's going on in the industry. I hear somebody say Amazon's foray in industrial supply as a wholesale slaughter is overstated. Somebody else says this doesn't need to be a big deal. Somebody else is talking about how the figure of $8 trillion is wrong, that it's really 5 or 7 rather than $8 trillion. Somebody else is saying, hey, let's not get so upset and let's not use the word disintermediation. And guys, I have to tell you, this type of chatter, while I am not an alarmist, I truly am alarmed by this type of chatter because I believe that this type of chatter truly can lead us to complacency. If we talk about it being overstated, if we talk about it that it doesn't have to be a big deal, that the numbers were wrong, and that disintermediation has been talked about for years, it's never going to happen. I think that type of chatter leads us to complacency. And in my mind, and I love your guys' thought, in my mind, what we have with this Amazon supply story, tacked on to all those other potential disruptors that we talked about, what I believe down to my core is that right now, as leaders within distribution, all of you on this call, all of you are leaders within distribution, and I believe down to my core, we cannot miss this opportunity. This is a once in a lifetime. This is a once in a career opportunity for you to create a culture of change, transformation, and innovation. And unfortunately, if we talk about it being overstated, that it doesn't have to be a big deal, so on and so forth, I think it's dangerous. We'll fall into the trap of complacency, and we'll lose this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to create a culture of change, transformation, and innovation. Gentlemen, do you have any quick thoughts? Am I off base here? A lot of people will believe I'm off base here. I'd love your thoughts.
Dirk, this is Chris. I don't think you're off base at all. I think it's really interesting to have a conversation about will Amazon succeed or not. But the real question, no matter which position you take, is what if they do succeed? What are we going to do? What will we have done to prepare ourselves for that? So I want to make sure that, and here's the slide. What if Amazon supply is successful? What do we need to do now? What kind of planning is involved? How do we have to prepare ourselves? What can we learn from Amazon? It's not just that we have to be in fear of them. There's definitely some things we can learn from them. So I think it's
Chris. I agree. We need
to
learn. Yeah, love it.
I think the other thing here is around this word successful and the complacency that we see. I travel around to a lot of different trade associations and do presentations, and I mention Amazon Supply, and a lot of the other speakers touch on Amazon Supply. I think there's a couple of things that sit behind much of the quote-unquote complacency. One is that they are just such a new competitor, and their thinking is so different. And I think the quote there from the publisher at Forbes kind of captures some of that. That for them, the definition of successful is not the same definition that we're used to. I've seen articles on Bezos, and he just has a different perspective and a different timeline and different measures that he's using. And I think that's part of the thing we really need to internalize, is that success for them is not maybe the same success that we're used to, and their model is not going to be the same one. So,
well said, Guy. Thank you, buddy. Thank you. Thanks.
And to throw some, this is Scott, and to throw something else out there while we're going through sort of this list. One of the early arguments that I had heard about the Forbes story itself was, this $8 trillion figure is probably wrong. I've heard the same things I think that you guys have heard. It's more like 7 or 6 or 5 trillion. Let's not underestimate the numbers that we're talking about here. We are talking about somewhere between $5 and $8 trillion. And certainly the folks at Amazon Supply are saying, I'd like to get my fair share of that. And those are your dollars, the people who are on this webinar, the people who are complacently not doing anything, thinking that nothing is going to happen and there's no way he's going to take them. He sees this as a huge pot of money, whether it's 5 trillion or 8 trillion, you pick which one it is. And he sees this as an opportunity to get a large percentage of that. And if you think he's going to back off and say, well, it's not quite enough money for me to want to get after, guess what? It's plenty enough money for him. It's plenty enough money for Amazon Supply to say, you know what? I want to get a big chunk of that change because it's out there. So don't underestimate the number just because Forbes may not have it spot on.
That's awesome. Thanks, Scott and Chris and Guy. And guys, as we continue to, think about the future of distribution and the need for innovation. I'm talking to CEOs in this industry every day of my life, and with all these disruptions coming at us, I recently heard one distribution CEO told me, there less than 10% of distributors are prepared or preparing the future. What we're all saying is that wholesale and distribution, we need a catalyst for change. So here is this gift that has been given to us in my mind. This article that's had over 200,000 views. By the way, guys, the average article of Claire, the author of this, has had less than 5,000 views. She has gotten over 2,100% increase in readership from this one article, right? So let's not lose this opportunity to use this as a catalyst for change in all of our businesses. Again, I believe it's a once or twice in a career opportunity. One other thing along those lines, we all know Tom Peters, right, of In Search of Excellence and Thriving on Chaos. And Tom, has reimagined business excellence in a disruptive age. And, along with Peter Drucker, they say it's Tom Peters and Peter Drucker who's really been the deepest management and leadership thinkers over the last several decades. And a couple of months ago, I was, again, having a Twitter conversation with Tom, and I was talking to him about, Tom, do you believe that courage is needed and or is missing in business, to drive change? And here was his response, guys, and I think it's brilliant. He tweeted to me, he said, Dirk, instead of courage, I prefer level of fury with the status quo, such that one cannot not act. Think about that. A level of fury with the status quo, such that one cannot not act. And guys, here we have this gift that we can help heighten the level of fury with the status quo to really create this culture of change, transformation, and innovation. And I think that's the opportunity, Chris, Scott, and Guy, that we all want to talk about today. Is that right?
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, so Chris, do you mind if we start with you? I know that you've thoughts relative to what we all can do in distribution as the CEO of a distribution organization who has been thinking about this for a long time. And I know you're the CEO of a fourth generation of business. So really interested in your thoughts. And you already shared with us, right, that we it's the question that you bring to this is, what if Amazon supply is successful? And I think the importance of rethinking is important to you.
Absolutely, and I think this. I do think this is a once-in-a-career opportunity to really make the dramatic kind of changes that are going to be necessary to survive with all of the interrupters that you talked about earlier. I had 5 little notes here. I think first thing is it's time to rethink. It's mandatory now. Rethink your business. Start from scratch. Look at it from the customer's point of view, and that's it occurred to me that so many people, I think, they have a nice value proposition that the marketing folks have put together. It's time to go back to the customer, find out what he considers to be your value proposition. So you're rethinking, redefining, reimagining your business, and ultimately reinventing it. And the key to this all is, as Dirk has pointed out, is you've got to innovate. And that's not just a fancy word. You've got to have a process and a strategy to do it. You've got to involve all your team members in doing it. But this is, if you're not afraid of Amazon, you're either not paying attention or you're missing an opportunity to learn from them. So I think those are the things that are driving me and hopefully all the folks that I'm working with.
Yeah, Chris, I love it. As I'm listening to you about the importance of rethinking everything, rethink your business, redefine your business. One of the thoughts that I heard and that I think is important that could drive some new thinking in organizations is, I think what you're almost telling us is that we need to look at our business as if we've never seen it before, right? And I think that's what the Amazons and the Google for suppliers and other non-traditional competitors are doing, and as they're looking at the supply chain and they're looking at how to, make it more efficient and get right to the consumer. Other people are looking at distribution as if they've never seen it before. And I think that's where a lot of the innovation is coming, because it's being rethought, redefined, reinvented, so on and so forth. Yeah, cool.
Good.
I know that you've heard a statement at our Unleash conference last October that has interest to you, Chris. I put it up on the screen.
That has stayed with me. Many distributors are already out of business. They just don't know it yet. We weren't talking about Amazon at that point. That was just a comment that was made from the stage, and it had to do with people who are kind of stuck in the mud, not making the kind of changes and doing the kind of thinking that's going to be necessary. We have, I'm in the lighting business. We have not only Amazon coming into our business, but we've got gorillas from technology coming into our business, and they don't all have the same business model that we have grown up with. We have smart lighting coming. We have products that we're selling now that are an 80. Forget LED for a minute. We have 80,000 hour fluorescence that in a commercial building is 20 years worth of life. So we're selling products that are over a period of time, and I'm speaking black and white here, but over a period of time, we're going to put ourselves out of that light bulb supply part of our business. So there are a lot of things to think about, and whether it's lighting or full line electrical or plumbing or any other aspects of distribution, you really got to be paying attention to what's going on in the world. And that goes back to your slides there, Dirk.
Well, Chris, great insights. Thank you. And what you're talking about really reinforces something that I found in my research for the book that's coming out in August, and that's that 85% of the distributors that we surveyed feel that they need to reinvent their business before someone else does. So we feel this change and this disruption that you're talking about, and I think everybody's looking for ideas from you and Scott and Guy and Unleash and others, to really help them do that. So, Chris, thanks very, very much. Hey, Scott, I know you put a lot of thought into this as the publisher of TED Magazine, and I know that there's a lot of individuals on this call who are not from the electrical distribution industry. And if I could say one thing, I would encourage any distributor manufacturer. It doesn't matter the line of trade. I know that you focus primarily on electrical distribution, but you produce a great publication that is great for all distributors that we could learn from. So I would encourage everyone on the line to go and subscribe to your magazine, even if they're not in electrical distribution. But I know you've been thinking a lot about Amazon Supply. Scott, I'd love your thinking, bud.
I have, and thanks for that, Dirk. Maybe I should just be done after that introduction. That was pretty good, so just move on.
Oh, it's true.
I really do. Thank you. And we've focused very hard on our online, where you don't have to subscribe if you go to tedmag.com. And we just this past, we did 10 straight days of Amazon Supply stories that we posted that were, exclusive to us, and were quoted at a number of different places. I know MDM picked it up, and National Association of Wholesalers made us their top story a couple of times in their news brief that they put out once a week. So we've really focused pretty hard, and I'm learning about Amazon Supply as we're writing about it, as everybody else is learning about it, and we've really studied what it is that they do and if they really are a threat to distribution. And if you go to the next slide again, one of the things that stands out to me is Brad Stone, and I've read this book, this Everything Store, Jeff Bezos in the Age of Amazon, and he said this in radio interviews. He said this at the NAAD conference that we had just last month in San Francisco, and it's this: Amazon will weave together a chain of small advantages. Bezos is incredibly analytical, and he looks for those points of leverage to wield that advantage against his competitors, which is you. And he said that a number of times, and it's really true. And so one of the things that I want to do in the next 2 or 3 minutes here is just kind of go through what those advantages are, so that you know that he has them, and he knows that he has them, and that he's using them against you. The first one is, again, we did this story back in April of 2012, which was headline: Amazon launches AmazonSupply.com with 500,000 plus products. And then, 2 years later, the Forbes story that launched this whole webinar comes out, and it says, the site will officially, while it's still in beta, will now list more than 2.2 million products. The average wholesaler lists about 50,000. So, advantage Amazon Supply when it comes to what it is that they stock every day. And yes, there's arguments about, well, they don't have a lot of the stock, or they only have a few items or whatever. We're still talking about 2.2 million items in their catalog compared to your 50,000. So they're beating you by about 22 times. And that's fairly significant. And, the next slide, I just wanted to show you, this is what one of their, dozens and dozens of warehouses looks like, and this is how they do it. And this picture alone shows you can't even see how big it actually is, because they don't have a lens on the camera that's wide enough to pick it all up. But advantage Amazon Supply, which is what they want to weave together when it comes to the fact that they just have more things that they offer up on a daily basis. The next slide will show you as we get into the next advantage, which is this. Yes, go ahead.
Just one quick thing, Guy. On that previous slide, I'm at ElectroFed in Montreal today, and one of the other presenters showed a really cool video of inside one of these Amazon warehouses and the Kiva robots that they use to drive a huge amount of potential efficiency. And I would encourage anyone on the webinar today that if you really want to get even more perspective on this image that Scott's put up here, just go online and Google Wired Magazine's video of the Amazon Kiva robots, and it's spelled Kiva. It will blow your mind and just further light a fire under you about how serious a threat these guys are, and how different they think.
You don't see a lot of people in that picture. Their robots actually pick up all their orders and put them in place for them. So it's really pretty.
And gentlemen, the other amazing thing, right, is they saw the potential of Kiva, that they actually went out and bought the Kiva.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So Kiva is now an Amazon company. Just amazing. Yep.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a great point, Guy. I'll make sure we look that up too. Second thing is this. This again from the Forbes story from just a couple of weeks ago. 125,000 employee logistics and data powerhouse. They have 125,000 people putting in logistics and data. Most your individual wholesaler has one maybe full-time person, maybe 1.5, and that's it. And we talked to Denise Keating, CEO at Data Agility, who's up there with Guy actually, and in one of our stories that we just did in TED Magazine, she says that your website and your data is a relationship building tool, and so you're getting beat 125,000 to 1 or 1.5, and the flip side to that is the research that NAAD did with NAW that we published in the magazine that said, a recent survey was actually finished in November of 2013, found that half distributors don't even have a website that offers the ability to buy products. So again, advantage Amazon Supply. you know, and these are the things that he wants to weave together and put and use in his multi-trillion-dollar gamble, if that's what Forbes wants to call it, against all of us. One of the things that I am as a storyteller, and this is where my kids usually get mad at me. This is my oldest son. He's a volleyball player, and this just shows the generational changes between who we are and what we're facing. So the season's about to begin. I tell a lot of stories. The season's about to begin, and he says, "Dad, I need shoes. I can't wear the shoes that I was wearing earlier this year. I really want these rockin', you know, blue Nike shoes that I'm going to use that kind of match my uniform when I play volleyball." And you see this. So he sends me this text message of these Kobe 8s. He says, "These are what I want. See if you can get these." And so, you know, when I bought them, they weren't 57% off, unfortunately. So I do what dads do. I pick up the phone and I call the local Foot Locker and I see if they have them and in his size, and they do. I tell them to hold them for me. I drive across town at my lunchtime. I pick them up. I pay for them with my credit card, put it in a bag, put the bag in my office, drive home at the end of the day. I'm like, "Here, son, here's your shoes." I'm all proud of myself. I figure he's going to be thrilled. He looks me square in the eye and says, "You see that red button that says add to cart? Why don't you just push that?" And that's the generational difference between how I shop and how he shops. And this is, again, this flows into what is going to become another advantage for Amazon Supply. I know that there's value added in looking somebody in the eye and saying, "I have all the specs that you need to get exactly what you want." And I know there's value added in I will get it to you and bundle it to you and bundle it for you, make sure it's at the job site where you want it to be. I get all of those things. But 10 to 15 years from now, I know I'm still going to be in this industry. You're probably still going to be in this industry. I'm sure your distributorship is still planning to be open then. People like my son who want to just hit add to cart are going to be making decisions on how they buy things. And that, again, is turning into an advantage for Amazon Supply. So yet another opportunity for Jeff Bezos to weave together what it is that he's doing to make stuff, to make himself stronger against you. So you go to the next slide, and again, I say, you know, the $8 trillion question. Go ahead.
Scott, if you don't mind, before we go to the next slide,
yeah, go ahead.
You know, as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about one of the things I write in the book about the challenge of legacy thinking, right?
Yeah.
Is that, right? It's that we are all trapped. I mean, it's human nature, right? And
right.
We're trapped in this legacy thinking. And what you described here is your legacy thinking of this is how I buy shoes. And as that's going on, we've got new employees, new customers, new markets, new suppliers who are not thinking like you and I. And it's us who has to change our thinking. We've got to escape that gravitational pull to the status quo and the legacy thinking. and to really understand.
Right. I'm not going to get in too deep into the millennial, you know, pool. But the fact of the matter is, you know, everybody said they're going to have, 30 to 40% of the workplace 10 years from now. You know, by 2020, either we're all going to have to go to them or they're going to come to us. Well, when they outnumber us, they're not coming our way. They're not. Right on. There's our leaders that are absolutely. Exactly. So we got to be certainly concerned about that. So, you know,
the question is to piggyback on that further. At the NAW Executive Summit earlier this year, Peter Bingaman, who's the Chief Marketing Officer from MSC, had, I thought, a very, very powerful slide that he put up in front of everyone that laid out a very simple view of the purchasing decision. And it was just basically an arrow that went across the page, and it was everything from, on the left side, it was sort of you create the product awareness, and on the right side, it's the sort of purchase and the follow-on service and the experience that you have from having that product. And his message was that it used to be that distributors and their sales force could play a role influencing that purchasing decision far earlier than they can today. Today, by the time somebody comes to you, your store, your branch, your website, in the same way that your son had researched those shoes and knew exactly what he wanted,
right?
You know, many, many more of your customers are going to be hitting your business knowing already more about the product probably than you do. And so you got to figure out how can you play a role influencing their purchasing decision much, much earlier and using a different set of tools than you do today.
Right. I agree. They're definitely shopping online. They may not be buying now, but they're definitely shopping online right now.
Yeah, that's right.
And so you get to and they're finding out everything they need. I mean, how many people who walks into an auto dealership now without knowing exactly what they want? You know, that's how people go through life now, and that's how people are going to start, you know, purchasing when it comes to B2B. If they're not already, they're certainly going to be doing that soon. So that's, you know, that's the world that we're living in. So, you know, today's May 29th, 2014, and the question is, you know, what is the threat to our, you know, our traditional distribution today, right now? You know, I'll be honest, I would put it at about a 3. You know, they're definitely not taking, you know, a significant amount of business, you know, from us. They're there, and we know it, and we certainly have to pay attention to it. But I want to make sure that we understand that there's a huge difference between doing something when the threat is a 3 and doing something when the threat is an 8 or a 9, and you really don't want to wait until this number goes up significantly before you do anything. And this is something that somebody showed me. I can't even take full credit for this, but April 5, 2005. This is a picture from inside Vatican City, outside of St. Peter's Basilica. They're about to name the new pope, and you look at this picture and you see in the lower right-hand corner there's one phone, which actually looks like a flip phone, taking a picture. This is, yeah, go ahead.
No, it does. Yeah,
it does. I think it's a flip phone. I can't really even tell. So this is the way the world was in April of 2005. And then some radical things happened. June 2007, Apple says, you know what, we're going to introduce the iPhone, which is, you know, one of the original smartphones that's out there. Well, it takes the Samsung folks almost 2 full years later before they introduce their first Galaxy phone. And so Apple then has kind of that 2-year head start on everybody else when it comes to smartphones and smartphone technology. Then you flip forward to the picture that's in the same basilica in March 13, 2013, when Pope Francis is named, and now take a look at what the square looks like. So Apple got a 2-year head start on Samsung and all the rest of the smartphone makers, and as you can see, you can't really find anybody who doesn't have a pad or a smartphone on them. And just to show you what 2 years, again, now the threat to, or I don't want to say the threat to, but Samsung being 2 years behind. Here's what this means. In April 2009, this is when they introduced the Galaxy, and they're 2 years behind the iPhone. Now, in March of 2013, congratulations to Samsung. They officially become the #1 smartphone seller. It took them $4 billion in research, development, and studying to actually get even with the iPhone. And that doesn't even count the $1,050 million that they had to pay because they stole the patent they stole 6 patents actually from Apple and had to pay that as a fine. So, if you wait 2 years and let Amazon get a stronghold on you, is this going to cost you $5 billion? Absolutely not. It's not going to do that to you. But the point is, it's going to cost you something. And we're hearing stories. I know that Dirk, you are, and Guy, you are too. And you know, there are wholesalers out there that are saying, I've lost my retirement money. I'm afraid I'm going to lose everything. I'm afraid that what I was going to do, how I was going to legacy my wholesaler, is starting to disappear on me because I did nothing. And so I'm hearing these great stories about innovation. I'm hearing these great stories about things that people are doing now that don't cost really much of anything. You know, some people, they're having a small investment and they're upgrading their websites, or they're making their social media stronger, or they're making sure that they have the data that they need. It's not a significant amount of money when you consider the $5 billion that Samsung had to spend just to get back in the game. And so the action that you take now and the innovation that you do now is really essential for you when you're talking about this potential threat from Amazon supply going from a 3 to a 7 to an 8 to a 9. Because again, Bezos is looking at that $5 to $8 trillion saying, I want a chunk of that.
Scott, I think that's brilliant, and thank you for that.
Sure.
What I hear you saying one way is that, you know, we have to use this opportunity, right, to drive this change and to drive this innovation. Mm-hmm. And by the way, we can do it with the technology that's available. Absolutely. And we can do it right now. And I think that's one of the key messages that we all want to get out. If you don't mind, I think also from the research we've done, when you talk about the change, and you use the Amazon and Samsung and the iPhones and the Square example, a couple things that I've heard CEOs telling me. They're saying, Dirk, if we don't change, we die, right?
Right. Okay.
They said, you know what, we're not learning as fast as the world is changing.
Mm-hmm.
And they tell me, Scott, that, most distributors don't change until someone says we have to close these branches. And that's why I think what you've just described to us is brilliant, because it's helping us all understand that now let's use this moment in time to learn from Samsung, to learn from Apple, and to learn from how you buy shoes and others to say, you know what, this is our moment in time to drive that change.
Yeah, exactly. I'd really like to see distributors, traditional distributors, use the value-added things that they have now that we've written tons of stories about and we hear stories about all the time, and I can go deep into stories of how people are really taking care of who their customers are, which is fantastic, and I think it's amazing. But they've got to innovate into the next decade. They've got to stay ahead of whatever the next threat is going to be, because at some point the economy is going to go bad again, and price is going to be the deciding factor on what people are going to buy.
You bet.
And so now you've got to say, well, if it is price, then Amazon's going to pose a bigger threat, because they're not afraid to take a loss on everything that they sell. So you have to say, well, the value added that I give, the opportunity to see products that I offer online is so much stronger than what Amazon Supply has, that now if price is the deciding factor, at least I can provide all of that too.
I love it. Thanks, Scott. And I know, Guy, you've got a lot of great insight and a lot of great research to build upon what Scott has shared in terms of how we can compete in this. So love to hear some of your thoughts, bud.
Yeah, and Dirk and everyone else on the phone, a lot of content on these slides. I put it in here for your reference. I'm not going to cover all of this today, but I think one of the key messages that I hope everyone's hearing is that it's not just the guys out of Seattle that you have to be thinking about, and it's not just the guys out of Seattle that you have to be learning from. And the next two slides here really summarize at least a few of the competitors that are out there, some of them traditional, some of them non-traditional, and the ways that they're engaging and rethinking either the transaction or the experience. I take this one on this slide, the Home Depot acquisition of Red Beacon. So Red Beacon's this little internet startup. They've taken probably a look at Angie's List, and they say, well, that's a pretty cool idea. You can go out there and you can rate the contractors, and it makes at least one part of the transaction that much easier for a project owner, which in many cases is a homeowner. They can at least have some degree of confidence that the contractor who's coming to their house has been vetted by a few other people, and they can see the ratings. But Red Beacon kind of took that one step further and said, well, that's part of the equation, that you can pick the contractor off the Angie's List, but then you still have to go through the rest of the transaction in terms of getting a quote or quotes from multiple contractors and managing that bid process and then ultimately moving to contract. And that's part of what the Red Beacon value proposition is. It's bringing together the project owners, the contractors, as well as, oh, by the way, Home Depot, who supplies the product that goes into that project. And similar thing with Bids List, right, where you can put out a bid, you can get multiple bids from verified contractors, and then it will help you manage through that process and bring those people together. So for Bid List, for Red Beacon, for Howes, it's less about selling more product and more about delivering a different experience and using information and technology to create a whole new transaction flow with a lot more transparency and comfort and trust that goes along with that. And if you look at what a lot of the things Amazon does, they get at these same issues with a tremendous amount of product information. They get at it with the product ratings. They get at it with continuous innovation and learning. For those of us who buy stuff on Amazon, we might get emails, especially if you write a product review. Amazon will now proactively reach out to you and say that there's somebody else who's hit our website, they've looked at this product that you've bought, they've seen your product rating, they have some questions. Would you be willing to answer the question that they've posted to our website? So a whole different way of thinking about the transaction and the value of information. And they're recognizing that they don't have to build it all themselves, and that one of the real powers of the technology that's available to us, from mobile to social to analytics, is the ability to create these ecosystems of value and information in a very, very low-cost way. So take a look at these two slides and some of these non-traditional competitors.
Guy, as we look at the other slide,
Yeah.
I'll just, as I click forward, as I'm listening to you, that information and the technology that you talk about, to change that experience. The word going through my mind is friction, right? It seems like the commonality here is that all of these are looking to reduce and eliminate the friction that takes place as individuals and businesses are buying and consuming goods. And it looks like information technology and new models are allowing us to do that. It's very cool. Thanks.
Yeah. And taking that a step forward and putting it into a little bit more of an abstract view, but as I look at that, and exactly what you said there, Dirk, around removing some of the friction that exists in the supply chain and in transactions, I think there's also a huge shift going on with distribution, and it's not happening fast enough. There's a shift from the customer service mindset with a lot of legacy attributes that many, many distributors are clinging to as sources of differentiation. The line card, the amount of inventory we have, the number of locations, our ability to compete on pricing. Order by 6 o'clock, we'll get it there by tomorrow at 9. A lot of those traditional customer service attributes are still very, very important, but they're no longer as differentiating as they once were. And what we're moving to is this age of the customer experience, where we're stitching together e-commerce, analytics, mobility, and social networking into a true experience where it's not walking into the Starbucks and smelling the coffee and having the nice lighting and a comfortable place to sit and some nice music. It's not that type of experience, but it's translating the experience into a B2B landscape and a B2B context with some of these things that are at the bottom of this slide. So making it easier for your customers and other stakeholders to do what they need to do. And I think somebody's point, I forget whether it was Scott or Dirk who was saying, it's not just about purchasing product. There's information flows that are happening that are equally as important. So anyway, just overall, I think a huge shift where customer service was the differentiation. Customer service is still important, but it's much more about the experience.
Yeah, I really think that's compelling thought that we all need to leave with, right? That we need to move from the thought of customer service being the differentiator to customer experience being the differentiator. And we all need to define what that's going to mean. But I think you also find the metrics have to change within our businesses. And if we rely on the metrics we used to manage our business in the past, it will be another gravitational pull to the status quo. And I think what you're finding, Guy, and recommending is we need to rethink the metrics that we are going to key in on in our organizations.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really the message of this slide. And I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on it. The graphic is basically the same, but you summarize it very well, Dirk, that the metrics that we've used to run our business historically and all of the reporting that we've pulled together to run our business, much of which was what happens type reporting. So what were the monthly sales? What was the product volume? Just all that look back reporting, it's still important. You still need it. But going forward, there's all these new metrics, and you can see some of them listed here that are going to help you define, innovate, and iterate your experience to create meaningful differentiation in the future. And we can go forward to the next slide, because I think there's some interesting slides here I pulled out from Lowe's. the home retailer, right? That we're all very, very familiar with. And this is from the investor and shareholder presentation a couple of years ago, and I just thought this really, really reinforced exactly what I've been trying to say in the presentations I've been giving. This is straight from their investor presentation, and they talk here about the new promise, which is all about branding and marketing and delivering promise to your customers, and then executing against that. And it's interesting that most 10K filings that public companies have to submit to the SEC are pretty dry documents and don't really have much of a marketing flavor to them. If you go into the Lowe's 10K report, one of the first things in that report under the discussion of their business is what their brand promise is to their customers. And I thought that was a pretty powerful statement to their investor community about what's important to their business and what their compass point is that they're managing the business against. So, the brand promise and the executing against that, if you go to the next slide, Dirk, they also, go ahead, Dirk.
No, I know we're running up on time, but I'm just looking at the statement on the bottom out of that 10K filing, right? We've chosen to deliver the better experiences by pulling together the best combination of possibilities. I want to stop right there, right?
Yeah.
What a thought, It's all about possibilities. And, if we open our mind, if there are tons of opportunities and possibilities out there, if we think differently. Anyway, go ahead. I apologize, Sky.
No. I mean, it's a great point, right? It's no longer about selling more 2x4s and bags of Scott's Turf Builder. It's about delivering an experience. And, just to piggyback on the comment I made about Peter Bingham's presentation at NAW, this is really what he's saying, and this again is out of Lowe's presentation. They understand the stages of home improvement, and that there's just one of these bars that involves actual purchase, the third one over, but they understand they have to engage with customers and create exciting opportunities across all of these dimensions in order to be relevant. And so you start with the influence, you get to the purchase, and then at the back end, you create these advocates for who you are by the level of enjoyment. And obviously enjoyment for many B2B products and B2B contexts is not going to be sitting on the back deck and enjoying the new deck that you just put together. It's going to be a different type of enjoyment, but it's the type of thing that we need to be thinking about. And if you go to the next slide, this is their legacy mindset. Right, that they recognize that their corporate infrastructure, the buildings, the store associates, the inventory, all the stuff that we talk about, was built to support a single channel business opening 100 stores a year. So it's the traditional. Flip forward a page. Now what they're seeing is that they need to fully integrate an omni-channel strategy. And so much of this sounds like just marketing speak, right? But you can see how one of the leading retailers is fully embracing the messages here, and it's not just Amazon Supply that's rethinking how to stitch all this together. The on-site, the call center, the store, mobile, analytics running behind the scenes, to new capabilities, new measures, and delivering on the brand promise. So I'll leave it at that. I just thought it was a really nice way and a very powerful way that Lowe's has taken what I've been saying and put it into their shareholder presentations. I think there's some good lessons in there.
Yeah, Guy, I really do. I think it's brilliant. I think it's awesome. I think there's a ton of takeaway there. So, as I'm looking at this, I think about one of the Steve Jobs quotes that has inspired me over the last 3 years to, really be part of driving the innovation conversation throughout distribution and starting the Unleash Innovation Summit. And that quote is this, and I think it ties directly to what you said, Guy and Scott and Chris as well. Steve Jobs at one time said, it comes down to trying to expose yourself to the best that humans have done. Not the best that other distributors have done, but the best that humans have done. And my goodness, what I'm hearing is we can learn from Lowe's. We can learn from Apple. We can learn from Samsung. We can learn from others. And then let's try to bring those things in to what we're doing and into distribution. And that's what we try to do at Unleash. And Guy, I think your stories there are an example of what Steve Jobs coached us on. So I appreciate it. A couple of thoughts of my own, guys, on this whole thing. I know many of you on our call today have downloaded. You know, after that Forbes magazine came out, I spent the weekend really thinking it through, and I wrote this white paper, The Bet Every Distributor Must Make. And truth be known, I finished it at 4:30 in the morning on Sunday morning. The people who downloaded it first got back to me with proofing errors. I appreciate that. But my message in that is again, that I'm not an alarmist, but I'm alarmed by this chatter in the industry. I suggest in that white paper that there's really three lenses we should be looking at this. Number one, as I look at Amazon supply, I believe it's important for us to take away from this moment in time that right now, with this one disruption, and again, Amazon supply is just one possible disruptor. And with Amazon supply, you know, I believe we are now competing against the boldest guys on the planet. Think about that. I mean, here's the stated goal of Amazon supply. The stated goal is to supply everything needed to rebuild civilization. Can I ask you something? Distributors on the call, manufacturers on the call, think about your last management meeting. Have you guys been thinking as bold as Amazon supply? I think it's time for us to do so. The second lens is I believe we are now competing against the smartest guys on the planet. I mean, Bezos, you know, got a lot of press in December on 60 Minutes when he talked about, you know, the drones. And I don't know if that's going to be possible, but a less talked about story is the patent that Amazon was given in December of last year that they call anticipatory shipping. And Amazon knows us so well, it wants to ship us our packages before we order it. Man, that takes my breath away. We're competing against the smartest guys on the planet. The third example, did I hear somebody?
No, keep going.
And the third example, or the third lens, is I believe, you know, it's important for us to think about, you know, we can't fall into complacency because we are competing against the most relentless guys on the planet. I mean, Bezos is not, we heard that, let me see if I can find it here real quick. You know, here's what the author, Claire O'Connor, told us, right? Amazon supply is an experiment. It doesn't have to make money. They're relentless at becoming great, at rebuilding business models and the like. And so the New York Times, you know, says Amazon's long-term, Amazon says long-term, and they mean it. And in Bezos' original manifesto, if you will, you know, think about what he's talking about here. It's all about the long term. We're working to build something important, something that we can tell our grandchildren about, and they are relentless. So summing it up, again, as we started with the premise, rounding errors, if it's a big deal or not, guys, I think everybody, all leaders in distribution, we've been handed a gift. And that gift right now is that every leader only has one or two opportunities in a career to really drive change in a new direction. And I believe this is our once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to do exactly that. And the good news is that you, every one of you on this call, can in fact be the catalyst of change. So the last thing we'd like to do with you, maybe take the last 5 minutes or so, talking about some actionable items. What can you do as you hang up from this webinar, starting today, to drive innovation, to drive change, to become that catalyst of change in your organization? And Guy, why don't we start with you, and then Scott and Chris, if you have anything to add, we can do that. But Guy, I know you've got 3 thoughts that individuals can leave here to drive change, become that catalyst.
Yeah, and I think some of this is what you've already heard through the call today. One of them, and it kind of echoes what Steve Jobs said, is, you know, engage in a meaningful way with a leading company from outside wholesale distribution. That we heard some examples of this when we were at Unleash. In other research that I've done, I've heard really great examples of distributors from food service equipment, from electrical, from plumbing, who have really challenged the status quo by engaging with somebody like a Zappos or a J. Crew or somebody else from outside their industry. Maybe it was Disney was another example where a distributor said, you know what, as we reimagine the customer experience, let's learn from the absolute best. Let's go and spend some time with the folks at Disney. The other one would be around spending a full day in your customer's shoes. You know, map the transactions that they deal with from start to finish. Map a day in the life of the key people that you want to influence at your customers and other stakeholders, and then start to think about what elements of that transaction, what elements of the day in the life can you influence. And going back to that Peter Bingaman slide about the purchasing decision, how can you extend your influence beyond just the purchasing decision and beyond just the guy who creates the purchase order? How can you also touch the other influencers? And then the last thing is to prioritize 3 elements of your company's performance that you don't currently measure. So again, this gets into this customer experience area. It could be the Net Promoter Score. It could be something to do with your website. It could be the effectiveness of your promotions. But prioritize based on these other factors 3 things in your business that you don't currently measure, and then build a plan for measuring that sooner rather than later. And if you need to build some proxies in the near term because you don't have the data readily available, then that's fine too. But you know, what's measured gets done, and I think what we're suggesting is that new things need to get measured.
Yeah, well said. 3 dynamite things that we can begin. Guy, I appreciate it. Scott and Chris, any thoughts on your end?
You know, as far as I'm concerned, this is a gift that we're being given here, in the sense that it's a wake-up call. It's an opportunity to learn from other people, and I think so. We have an enormous challenge ahead of us, but it's an amazing opportunity. And rethink, reinvent, redefine your business, and you will survive.
Dynamite. Thanks, Chris. Scott?
I mean, I agree with Chris and certainly with Guy. You know, I don't think that the answer is throw money at the problem. I mean, I think the answer is let's listen to the people that you work with and work around. You know, and I'll say that, you know, a woman who works in our learning management division at NAAD is the person who brought me the Forbes magazine article before I even had a chance to do it. And I talked to her about, like, what do you think we should do here? Well, maybe we should do, that's great. Next thing you know, we're doing 10 straight stories, and I'm increasing the brand of what the magazine is because I'm cutting edges that Forbes can't possibly cut, and I'm doing a better job than what other industry magazines are doing. So it might be, you know, don't force your people to brainstorm, but certainly listen to what they have to say, and you'd be surprised at what innovations are going to come out of that.
I love it, Scott. Thank you. And tied to that, I'd love to leave everybody with free-framing discussions, you know, talking about the conversations in the organization, right, and the brainstorming, Scott. So the 3 that I would leave you all with are 3 ideas that you can bring starting this afternoon into your next management meetings. And the first one is focused on new competition. And I would recommend that you all sit around the table and assume that we are now competing against the smartest guys on the planet. Don't argue the point. Don't try to nuance it. Just take that for the statement for what it is. And then ask yourselves, what are the potential ramifications to our business? If that's true, what are the potential ramifications to your business? You can be the catalyst for change. We can drive that. The second one is to have a discussion relative to shifting business models. So at your next management meeting, have your team identify any and all new and or non-traditional competitors, and then have a hard and an honest conversation about the disruptive possibilities of these new models. I don't care if they're selling 1 penny to your customers or $1 billion to your customers. That's not the issue right now. The issue is, let's take a look at these non-traditional models and then have a hard and an honest conversation about the potential disruptive possibilities. And then the third thing is around what we talked a little bit here called legacy thinking. And this might be a little bit more sweaty palms for us all, but you might consider inviting a certain number of high performers, deep thinkers from your organization to share examples where they believe leadership, you, me, leadership is looking at the business through the lens of yesterday. Allow them, give them the license to be brutally honest and to share their thoughts as to where, you know, and to give examples of where we're looking at the business through the lens of yesterday, and you know, how these might lead to a resistance to change and put the business at risk. 3 framing discussions you all can take. Hey, I know we've gone over by a few moments. I'd like to say Scott, Chris, and Guy, thank you guys very, very much. Great insight. I look forward to doing this again. And all of you, if you've downloaded this tool or not, I really encourage you to not look at your email right now. Think, take a look at your notes. Write down any key insights. Write down any action item that comes to your mind as to what you need to do to move that insight forward. And then if you want to take it even further, go ahead and brainstorm with yourself what must you do in the next 7, 14, 60 days. Because I truly believe every one of you can be the catalyst of change. And we encourage you to start right now. This is our moment in time. A couple of resources for you all. I've mentioned to it. Scott does a phenomenal job, produces an excellent publication. Please go and check out tedmag.org. It is a phenomenal resource for us all. And then the last thing is, most of you know that this October 29th and 30th, we're going to have our 3rd annual Innovation Summit for distributors and their supply chain partners. It truly is a catalyst for us all to think differently about our business and to drive innovation, transformation, and change. And we encourage you to check it out. But with that, one more time, Scott, Chris, and Guy, thank you guys very much. It's been a ball. I look forward to doing it with you guys again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I hope everybody got something out of it, obviously.
You betcha. Thanks.
Thank you.
And with that, we'll call it a day.
Great.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.